subject, and we have Robert Flag Wild Randall
Hello.
someone.
No, that's a spoiler. Don't tell them that.
Don't tell him that you're Randall Flag.
He's a cool guy.
Um, we're here to do the stand. Sorry, I'm all discombobulated now. This was he made me watch because I wanted to test Robert's patience. We are doing this version of the stand from 1994, which I feel like is kind of forgotten.
It's forgotten unless you're from that generation or a big Stephen King fan. I feel like you generally have to fall into one of those two groups to even like know or talk about this. It's not like the It miniseries, which kind of lingered on and was like a big part of a lot of children's or a lot of people's childhoods in the 90s and kind of stuck around through osmosis. And of course, Tim Curry's performance. This didn't really have that kind of lasting power, for better or worse, just in the pop culture zeitgeist. I
Yeah,
feel.
I feel like if I hadn't had access to this as a child, I might not know this exists. So let me
No,
ask
let's make
you,
it
because
make it
you've
up.
already watched this, right?
Mhm.
Any preamble or any thoughts you want to give before we start this insane project?
Not much other than I think it's pretty good. My main takeaway was just for the time this was made. For people who don't have historical context, this being in '94, I was surprised by how grand scale this was and what they pulled off. They put quite a bit of money into this, and of course, I don't know immediately offhand how the budget of say the Shining miniseries compared to this. It was probably cheaper, but even still, that's a whole story with like three characters in one location, and it looks way cheaper than this. I don't know how that happened because this is surprisingly grand in terms of the amount of sets and locations and speaking roles. Like we've got quite the stacked cast of 80s and 90s who's who of character actors and TV actors, which is kind of interesting. But long story short, I thought it was pretty good. You have to go into this thing having a bit of historical context, but for the time, it is definitely a step above what you think of as like made for TV movies or show or miniseries back in the 90s. I do think this is a cut above a lot.
I'd
Even
say this is
the It
better.
miniseries.
This is better than it, because it
Mhm.
is fucking boring.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Outside of like Tim Curry, everything else is boring. It just is. That's gonna be a fun commentary. You're gonna have to drag me through that because I'm just gonna be like,
It's half the length of this.
that's true. It's better than the stand, and I will die on the hill that the stand is not as bad, or the Shining is not as bad as the Shining miniseries. And I will die on the hill that the Shining miniseries is not as bad as people say it is. It does some things better than the Kubrick movie, and you can quote me on that.
Maybe a couple. Yeah.
It does the character stuff a lot better. Anyway, so this so this was a 1994 ABC miniseries. Because that's the other thing to keep in mind. This wasn't like HBO or Showtime or whatever existed at the time. This was just on ABC.
Hmm.
This is cable. Um, this was a 6-hour miniseries, which is really the only way that you can do this. Split into 4 parts. Because much to Robert's annoyance, because they're all uneven runtimes, I think. Um, I'm going to turn on the subtitles. And we are starting with part 1 called The Plague. Robert, do you have The
Oh,
Plague?
I do have the plague.
Do you remember after COVID when everyone was like, oh, The Stand is like so much more relatable now?
I missed that discourse probably just because I hadn't watched this yet and wasn't aware of it. I remember what's that movie called? Contagion. That like blew up on
Mm-hmm.
streaming when COVID kicked in. Like everyone was watching it on Netflix or whatever it was on and like freaking out about it. This kind of passed me by, but I did have that thought quite a bit watching this of oh god, this plays different now.
Yeah. And I saw a tweet. I can never tell if it's one of those fake tweets or whatever. But Stephen King tweeted something. Someone was like, How do you know? Did you read it? Because he was talking about the stand. And I was like, if this is real, just. Hmm. Anyway, I am at timestamp 0. Robert, where are you?
0 as well.
Okay, and this is streaming for free on YouTube if you would like to watch along. And due to the fact that I keep getting these comments, I would just like to remind you that this is not a reaction. This is a
Mhm.
commentary podcast. The idea is to either watch the movie with us or listen to it like a podcast. We will never show clips of the thing we are watching because there is a little thing called copyright. And if it is something like Night of the Living Dead that is copyright free, I do not have the technical know how to edit that into the video. So you're
Mhm.
just going to have to deal with the fact that we are commentating on what we're watching. Why are you looking up reactions for something you've never seen anyway? Anyway,
Excellent question.
in three, two, one, play. And I have not
This
seen
is
this in
the
a
way the world
while.
ends.
Meanwhile, Star Wars.
Bum, 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 bum. Oh,
Do
it's
you
music.
like the obvious music choice here?
Yeah, it's not to love.
Or that's coming up here in a minute?
No, I mean, it's way overplayed now. Don't fear the Reaper, but I think it's used pretty effectively here.
I don't actually hate it. I just think it's funny because like the most obvious.
Well, it's 94. I don't think it was as overplayed yet.
One thing that this does cut from the book is Stephen King takes a long time to just explore the outcome of like 99% of the population dying. And there's
Mhm.
horrifying little one-off stories like a little boy fell down in the well when everyone died so nobody could pull him up, and
Ugh.
that ends about as well as you'd expect it to. um, Parents who had to watch their children wither away and die, like the plague is the scary part. What comes next is just yeah.
Yeah, I do think this episode of 4, the plague here, is the most intense of them. But would you say the novel probably falls more in the horror genre than this? Because this is obviously horror adjacent, has horror elements, but just looking at the miniseries as is, I wouldn't immediately call this horror. Maybe you disagree with that, but there's a lot of genres, kind of a mix of.
Probably because I feel like we downplay how long the plague takes. Like we just kind of move through that to get to the good versus evil fantasy part of it. Whereas in the book, the plague is the first half of the book and how each of our main characters is dealing with it in their individual locations. But the book is also 1,100 pages, so you know.
Yeah.
That's why you couldn't turn this into a movie. You'd have to gut most of it.
Right, and of course, this was in development hell for many years because they were trying to make it a movie. But then, obviously, it was not the first Stephen King miniseries. That the first of those being Salem's Lot in '79, but it was like what kicked off the trend. Because then we got a bunch of these in the '90s, and
Yep.
after the success of it was when King or whoever was like, "Oh, let's do that for The Stand. Let's stop trying to make this a movie. Let's just do a miniseries." Seems like was the right call, at least at that time.
Yeah. I feel like you either have to do a two-part film or you gut all of the plague stuff and it's just Earth has been wiped out. Now here is the good guy versus bad guy stuff.
Mhm.
And thus, humanity was doomed to die.
Yeah.
And you know, it feels cliche, but we don't actually see a lot of just like apocalyptic plagues. Usually it's oh, it's the dead are back, or you know, it's doing
Mhm.
something to humans. It's not oh no, they're just dead.
Yeah. Well, I think the most novel idea about this, because I went into this kind of blind, like I knew it was vaguely apocalyptic and had those religious overtones, but it feels like King's story here is the more quote unquote grounded version of like the Rapture, where instead of everybody disappearing, it's well, what if they all just fucking got sick and died from like this man-made virus and it was like horrible. And it starts in a more like, quote unquote grounded place and then gets more mystical as it goes. So that
There's
mixture
definitely
of
a read
ideas
there
I found
because
interesting.
Randall Flagg is basically the Antichrist.
Yes. Or he's trying to give help somebody give birth to the Antichrist. It's a little vague. Maybe the book goes into more detail about that whole
I
thing
don't
going on.
remember. I don't think it does. That is where the metaphor falls apart a little bit. It's like, but if you're already the Antichrist, do you need another child?
Right. You seem to be doing all right.
Why this woman? Oh, I didn't know you had the book.
I do have this is my mom's old copy, which is in horrible condition. Probably from the 90s. I'm curious if you've seen this cover before.
I
I
have
guess that's supposed to be
not.
Flag. But
Yeah.
yeah, one of those
Is that
reprints.
that might
Yeah,
be
from
the original release then?
I'm guessing
How many
probably
pages is
not.
that?
Let's see. This is just over 800 pages, so it's definitely not up
Yes.
first.
No. So because remember I mentioned that it's 1100 pages? He went
Mhm.
back later and put in a bunch of stuff that got edited out of the first script. So you have
Oh,
in your
interesting.
hands the original version of the stand. It may be a reprint, but it's not the uncut version.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so
I
this
don't
came
know
out
what's
in
missing, but
okay, so I just looked up a date. So this copy came out in 1980. So a little bit after it would have been first released. So
yeah,
interesting.
so
But yeah,
that
I will
yeah,
probably never read this, but it's nice to have.
that is
I
interesting.
have a
I've never seen the edited version, so to speak,
mm,
because I think everyone that gets released now is the unedited.
yeah. I have a bunch of old books like this from my mom. A few other Stephen King ones, just because she reads everything on Kindle now. Like she doesn't
Mhm.
really keep physical
You should
books
read it.
anymore. But yeah, it's long. That's kind of the main thing I knew going into this is just oh yeah, this is his other infamously long book before it. It's like the
And it's
other
better written than it.
super probably. Because what do you call this? Stephen King's first like epic? Because obviously in the 70s it's coming off of his hits like Carrie and Salem's Lot and The Shining, but would you
Yeah,
describe this as like his first real epic, which he'd
yeah, I
really get
would.
into? And then the Dark Tower is that, except that's a bunch of books. That's not 1,000 page
That's his like
story.
magnum opus epic.
Yeah,
Gary Sinise, I think, is brilliantly cast in this role.
he's perfect.
I
Uh,
do
b-
think this movie downplays some of the age gap that I always get when I'm reading the book between his character and Franny.
I
Because
can
it
see
always
that.
seems like he's a little bit older and Franny's a little bit younger, like just out of high school young, which is weird,
Well,
but it's whatever.
yeah, well, because that's hard to say. Because in real life, Molly Ringwald is obviously in her 20s, and he's probably like early 30s here. So like there is a gap, but it's not like
Yeah.
crazy. But then with Molly Ringwald's character, I'm unclear on how old she's supposed to be. Like, is she 18 or 25? I don't know.
It could be one or the other.
I think one of the elements that did surprise me the most from this, I guess it shouldn't, given that this was after it hit, and I think that was also on ABC, but this is bloodier than you'd expect from a 90s TV cable miniseries. This goes to some pretty violent places you wouldn't typically see on normal television.
Yeah, and I do wonder if maybe the home media release is maybe like an unedited version. I
That's
don't know,
possible.
but I also don't know how you make this without some blood and gore.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this: who was your favorite character at the end of the day?
It's hard not to say Stu, just because it's Gary Sinise and he's great. Uh, Randall Flagg's a cool bad guy. Um, I feel like we'll get into it as it goes. There are characters I like that I wish got more screen time, like the judge guy. Of course, the voice of Patrick from SpongeBob.
M-O-O-N, that
Oh
spells
God,
moon.
yeah, that gets old real fast, but he's still fun to watch.
In the
I
book, I don't remember
do.
if they do it in this, but in the book, he says that for everything. Not just
Yes.
he'll be like M-O-O-N, that spells noodle or whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
and I'm like,
what
no,
are we
it
doing?
doesn't. You moron.
What are we doing? But I do think one of my favorite characters is that deaf and dumb guy that he teams up with. I like him a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna mention him. Rob
Nick,
Lowe.
I think.
Yeah. The first of I think two Rob Lowe Stephen King miniseries performances, because he would later go on to
Be
be in
in
the
the first
2000s
remake of
Salem's Lot.
Salem's Lot, yeah,
Yep,
which I still got to see.
me too.
It can't be worse than the new one.
It's probably better.
No, I
And
the like sick makeup is legitimately uncomfortable. It looks like he's rotting.
yeah, the miniseries won an Emmy for best makeup, which
Oh,
I'm sure was impressive at the time. Though by the end of it, I think makeup's kind of hit or miss in this thing, as our visual effects. But we'll get there.
how did you feel about the ending? Because I know the book's ending is very divisive.
I think the ending's fine, though there are some things I change about it.
Because I know
It
that was one of
feels
the big things with the new one. Like, oh yeah, Stephen King came in and wrote like a new ending. But I saw your
I don't
first like
know.
few episodes. I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know if I want Stephen King to rewrite the ending. And like I said, for the time, I was impressed by the scale of this thing, the camera work. This looks better than a lot of modern stuff.
Do you have this where these TV movies from like the '90s have a look to them? Like I can instantly place the decade this was made in.
Yeah, there's like a very specific texture to it that I like. And here we have Ed Harris, who's uncredited reason, but he's in a good chunk of this first episode. But he's great,
It should be noted this was made for $26 million.
which
That's
back
a
then is
chunk of
quite a
change.
bit. Yeah.
I've seen movies made now that cost less than that. It was directed by Mick Garris, who previously directed
Yes.
the original screenplay Sleepwalkers, your favorite.
Yeah. Which you still haven't seen, right?
I have not.
Yeah, I don't know why he got the job for this, because I was such a failure, but I guess it worked
You
out.
fail upward in Hollywood.
Stephen King must have liked him. Mick Garris, what an interesting guy. If you've ever watched a horror documentary, you've probably seen him. He's on everything. He's kind of known for, I don't know if he's like friends with, but collaborating with like John Landis and Tom Holland, not the Spider-Man one, the 80s one. Like all those 80s horror guys, he's known kind of keeping in touch and being a part of those horror documentaries. So that from a historical aspect, I find interesting and admirable. His filmography is hit or miss to say the least. He doesn't have a lot to his name as a director.
And as I mentioned, I saw this as a child, and it scared the shit out of me. Um,
I can understand that.
and it's the exact shot where they're running, where Randall Flagg's like walking down the street, and then it's the red eyes like flash. Couldn't handle it. Um, but because I'm old, the version that I had was a 4 VHS tape copy. Uh, one episode per VHS. That is more than the length of the Titanic on VHS tape. For reference,
That's true.
because that was a 2 VHS tape movie, if you remember.
Hmm.
And what's crazy, I don't know if you looked at this. This wasn't a weekly miniseries. This
Right.
ran nightly.
Hmm.
You don't
And
normally see that.
had really good viewership and not much drop off by the end. Like people who tuned in at the start did finish
Hmm.
it. Did you get RoboCop vibes from this little fake commercial?
Yeah.
There's kind of a dark,
And what's
cynical
sad is
core
the
to this.
bad CGI I can't complain about because it just looks like a commercial.
It looks like a '90s commercial.
So this also won an Emmy for sound mixing. No, but what's interesting is there is something very timeless about this story. Not
Mhm.
maybe not the plague, but once you get down to it's just good versus evil.
Yeah. And here we have Joe Bob Briggs for some reason, but he's here. A famous TV horror host. Where I was like, what? Like, I didn't know he was in this.
I didn't even recognize him.
It was the voice.
Hey, you know what? Screw you, Robert. Mick Garris has made one of the greatest sequels of all time, Critters 2.
That's probably unironically, besides this, maybe the best thing he's made. I still haven't seen it, but just going off of reputation,
Yeah.
Critters 2 is pretty highly regarded. I do need to see
Hey,
that one.
are you bad mouthing the man that wrote The Fly 2
Ooh. You
and
gotta start
Hocus
somewhere.
Pocus?
Oh God.
Yeah.
But he did also in the early '90s direct Psycho 4, which was a Showtime movie, and I think it's pretty good.
He did?
Yeah,
That's not on. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there
Psycho
it
4,
is.
the beginning.
Sorry, no. They they
They put
separate
it under
it.
TV.
They put that under TV. I was looking at movies. I was like, I don't
Gotcha.
see this. Where? Actually, wait. I don't see it under movie TV either.
Mm.
Oh, oh, for God's sakes! So they have movies, TV, and then TV movies. Just combine them. He also directed 3 episodes of The Shining.
He did direct after this. He would go on to direct the Shining miniseries, which
That's what I
some
just
people would,
said.
which some people would consider a step down.
I
But I
mean,
haven't watched
if
all of
I'm
it.
being honest, as a if you're just looking at it as a piece, it is inferior, but it is a better adaptation. I think both are valid.
That's fair. I am scratching my head a little though, because if you had just shown me this, I'd go, oh yeah, this guy would probably do a good job with The Shining. It just feels like a lot of wrong lessons were learned. Like there is
Well,
a
the biggest mistake with
bad
The Shining was they let Stephen King write it.
there's that, which, and to his credit, he wrote this too. But there's definitely an over reliance on CGI in that
Mm-hmm.
mostly isn't a problem here.
Yeah,
And it's
I
weird
mean,
because you're
I
just
guess I
watching a few
say
people in one
that's.
location.
I guess I say that's the main problem. That is the main. That's the actual main problem. It's just all of the horror sucks.
Which I think is done pretty well here.
Yeah.
I will say these army outfits are like a little cheap looking, but it's fine.
What
Again,
do you
I'm
mean?
just
These are real
impressed
members
by.
of the military.
Well, and there's a lot of prop guns in this where I'm like, ooh, that looks pretty fake, but it's fine. I'm just impressed by the amount of real locations and sets we're going to. You know what I'm also impressed by? 99% of the time, that crow, they have a real crow or crows they're using to film this thing. They did not use a CGI crow. Good job,
Thank God.
1994 Mick Garris. Because you get a lot of close ups of that crow, and it's always real, it's there, and it looks fine.
No, and one thing that this does really well, and we'll get there, is this captures a really good look at just a wasteland.
Yeah.
once we're past the plague.
Good year for Gary Sinise. He's had an interesting career. Might be retired. Like I haven't seen him in anything in a
I
while
haven't either.
since
But this is
like
around the same
CSI
time
New
as
York.
Forrest Gump, right?
Yeah, same year.
I
And
don't care
he's
what
great in
anyone
that.
says. That movie's awesome.
That movie is great. There's like a weird backlash now. Like people have started to turn on it. I don't get it.
I don't-
I think
The
it's great.
ending hurts every time.
I think so too. And Gary Sinise is amazing in it.
Uh
Uh
oh no, Robert. He was on 13 Reasons Why.
oh. Well.
Apparently he was and he was gonna be the lead in that Criminal Minds spinoff we were talking about the other night.
Oh.
He's the Smithsonian narrator in The Winter Soldier?
He is, dude. I could be wrong on this. Maybe he is credited, but I remember when I first saw that movie, I was like, that sounds a lot like Gary Sinise, and I couldn't find any confirmation on that. And then years later, I'm like, oh my god, it was him.
Yeah, I
I
didn't
was
know
right.
that.
Yeah, he just has like the very distinct American sounding voice where you're like, yep, that makes
But
sense.
let us not forget his best role. Detective Mac Taylor in the CSI New York video game
Of course, they had one of
for
those.
the PC. I'm sure that was great.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, I haven't seen him in anything in ages. And I figured it was because I just wasn't watching stuff like CSI or Criminal Minds.
Yeah, I mean, CSI New York hit it a while ago now.
Do you feel like the Last of Us is looking at maybe not this miniseries but this book?
Possibly some Last of Us. I also got some major Walking Dead vibes watching this because Walking Dead famously was, Kirkman's take on the Romero films, like Dawn of the
Mhm.
Dead, especially. But whereas those movies are usually just a small group of people in one location, this is way more grand than that and gets to this big and in places good versus evil place that
Mhm.
The Walking Dead eventually gets to because that's a very grand story and scope. So I
It
was
would not
getting that
shock me in the
more than
slightest
anything.
if he reads Stephen King.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Oh, hey, Mike Flanagan has added Superman to his watch list on Letterboxd.
Ooh,
Hell yeah.
good guy, good guy, that Flanagan. And
Um,
if we make this again, give it to Flanagan, please.
well, and it's funny because what list is it? Because he makes a bunch of lists on Letterboxd, whether it's like movies that are influencing whatever he's working on or favorite movies. And I believe this made his favorite King adaptation list.
Oh, interesting.
Although I'm looking at his top 100 now, and there's something really funny about the movie Babe being on there.
Yeah, people like that movie.
I think he's hidden a lot of his lists. That's a shame.
Yeah, and it's not that this is necessarily about like generational trauma. But there is a small town, but also community vibe to this that you do see in a lot of Flanagan's work, where I can certainly see the influences from this to some of his more recent stuff. He likes big ensemble narratives as much as he likes the really intimate stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now you can do something cool with this.
And coincidentally, the remake of this, if you've forgotten, that premiered in 2020, the year of COVID,
Yeah,
completely by accident.
yeah. No, I was super excited for that too, and then I didn't get around to watching it. And then I finally started to watch it one day while I was working. And I was like, "This is a mess, just from a narrative standpoint." Like,
Yeah,
because you start in the middle of the plague, then you flash back to the beginning, then you jump forward to like the end of the story. And I'm like, if I hadn't read the book, I wouldn't know what the fuck was happening right now.
this doesn't seem like the narrative you go non-linear with.
Yeah.
That's a weird choice. I do think if you were to stretch this out into 7 or 8 episodes, I think the way you'd go is less non-linear and more just very character-specific focused episode. Like here's Stu's episode, and then here's this character's episode, and but you'd
They
still
can do
kind of
that even with
progress
what's
throughout it.
here because they do
Mhm.
keep it. Because in the book, the first half is each character just has a storyline going on until they make their way to Mother Abigail, which you get most of that here. How do you feel about this guy? Because I feel like in this and in the book, he's the most unnecessary character. Like he's clearly one of
Yeah,
the mains, but I don't know why.
by the end, he doesn't contribute a whole lot to the story. I feel like he is a character you could have trimmed down once you see where we go with him. He also feels like a character where most of his development happens off screen.
Well, and it's really irritating in the book too because he has that one hit song and they reference it in this that "Do you love your man" or whatever, and King plays that all over the fucking book in every segment with him in it.
It's his thing.
I don't know who this actor is, but he's all right.
He's fine. I will say, as an adaptation, granted, I haven't read the book. When this is all said and done, there are probably some side characters you could have combined or trimmed out or trimmed down. Just because when I do get to the end of this, there are a couple people I'm like, wait, were they set up? I don't remember who this person was. We'll get
Is this
to it.
where you're gonna be like they should have cut Shawnee Smith?
She is kind of a weird one who I enjoy a lot for her performance, but I mean, if you cut that character, I don't think you'd be losing a whole lot.
I like their scenes with Nick. I think his name is Nick, the blind and mute one, or not blind,
Yeah,
deaf and mute.
yeah. I like him, though. I do have a question about him that's maybe more clear in the book, but we'll get there.
Okay. Well, and like with Larry, the only thing that he really provides the narrative is conflict for Nadine
Mhm.
because she's kind of torn between like having feelings for him and her weird dreams that I don't understand how she's having them with Flag.
Yeah, that's Stephen King's bread and butter. He likes unexplained psychic connections. It's one of his go-to
She's the
tropes.
chosen one. Meanwhile, at the command center, I mean, those are the most impractical monitors. Like you have to look all the way up to see the damn things.
and so this scientist guy on the right, I think that's Sherman Howard, who, for those who don't know, is Bub in Day of the Dead.
Oh
Yeah, he's in this a little.
God, this is a horrifying way to die.
Oh yeah, it doesn't look. It's like no, it's fine. He went gently into that good night.
It's like no, he
He's in a
didn't.
better place.
Wasn't it The Walking Dead made a big deal? Like we got Bub from Day of the Dead to be a zombie in our show for an episode.
I don't remember, maybe. But also, I don't know how much this is in King's other work, but there's definitely a bit of a contempt for scientists and the government from him here.
No,
And
that's
granted, this was
another.
written in the 70s. But
No, that is another thing because like he just published a book a few years ago that's kind of a horror take on the X Men, where
oh,
the scientists are kidnapping kids with powers and like experimenting on them. Um,
and we're in Maine. Stephen King trope number 17 in the
It all
Book of
happens
King.
in Maine. Although this is a weird one because it's kind of just the whole U.S.
Yeah, it's kind of a grand story. So, according to the poster of this miniseries, I don't know if this is still the case, but apparently this is Stephen King's best-selling book, or at least was at one point. Does that surprise you?
No, because you're coming off of arguably one of the greatest runs in horror novel of all time. But also, I feel like that's advertising.
Yeah, for sure. But also, what I thought about though too was horror is such even though it doesn't feel like it to us, it is such a niche specific genre that this does feel a bit more broad appealing, especially to an American audience, with its religious themes and kind of grand epic scale. Granted, maybe the book is darker than this, but still, I can see this being having a wider appeal than something like The Shining, which is something you have to be
It's
in a very
funny you
specific
say
mood
that
for.
because a quick Google search says that at least as of now, his biggest selling novel is The Shining.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so it is, but King got this really lucky, forte of immediately his stuff gets adapted and reaches a
Mhm.
bigger audience. Because The Shining is one of the biggest things in pop culture. Carrie was popular. Salem's Lot was, I assume, popular, that miniseries, but it was
Yeah,
a TV.
it was a hit.
This guy for Harold is perfectly cast because I fucking hate Harold in the book and I fucking hate
He's
him in this.
he is just the worst. What a horrible person.
What a horrible nightmare.
Now, I do think of all like our main characters or the main cast, I should say, I think Molly Ringwald as Franny might be the weak link. Like she's good and stuff. She's a perfectly good actress. Like I just think she gets a little outshined by some of the other actors here. How do you feel about her in this?
He's good. The thing with Franny is after a certain point when she get to like the settlement that they all settle in, really her biggest contribution is being Stu's girlfriend,
And being
um,
pregnant.
and being pregnant. Oh, I know that guy. That's Have you seen Scrubs?
I have not seen Scrubs. Not really. Seen maybe a couple
He's
episodes.
the evil hospital administrator on Scrubs.
Oh, that's fun.
The first episode's really funny because uh, the main character, thinks that he's the good guy and Cox, the one that everybody memes, is the bad guy because Cox is like really cruel to him, and the hospital administrator is really nice. But then he discovers at the end, no, Cox is just brutally honest. The hospital administrator that you've been looking up to is an asshole. That show's really good. It draws out the main romance a little too much, but
As often happens. One thing I'm guessing the book makes more clear that I was confused about in my first viewing. So is the idea that she is already pregnant here and she just doesn't know it yet? But she is pregnant from a previous relationship, right?
she is pregnant with Harold's baby.
Harold.
Yes.
So they actually hooked up? Because I didn't get that vibe watching this at all.
Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure it is Harold.
Okay, maybe they changed that, but just in the mini series though, it's very like unrequited
I am
love.
stupid.
She says we're
I just googled The Shining stand.
That's his next one. He's gonna cross him over. The Shining
I mean, he
stand.
kind of did. Because in the Dark Tower, one of the main characters has The Shining, and then of course
Oh
Rick
yeah,
Flag is.
but yeah, all his books are in one universe. I know, even when it doesn't make any sense. I know they're all connected.
It's fine.
It's fine. Because the way they play that dynamic in this show is very. He has a crush on her, but she's too old for him.
Oh no, I'm sorry. She has a boyfriend that is off, never met, that gets her pregnant. Harold is the good guy best friend that wants to be with her.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the toxic
Like,
version of that because
right.
he doesn't know how to take no for an answer.
Nope. But also, when she is pregnant later, I'm like, wait, who's the father? Like,
Yeah, I
I
don't think they
definitely
even
missed something
mention
in my
him in
first view.
this. No, they cut that all down too because in that I don't think it's in this, but in the book she has like a really toxic mom who's like, your typical
Mm.
religious crazy woman who
Oh, of
slaps her for
course.
getting pregnant. Stephen King mom.
Yeah.
But the
Well, you
dad
gotta.
is like, no, leave her alone. She's an adult. We still love her and cherish her.
So it's funny how in the book it's like you get the stereotypical king trope, religious nut, and Mother Abigail, who's like the good version of that. And for the show, they're like, we've done that trope enough. We can cut that out.
Oh, okay. So are you ready for this? That her dad, the one that I said is from Scrubs, is also in the Psycho remake as the district attorney.
That iconic character.
Yeah.
Good for him.
He was also in Clock Stoppers. I Am Sam. God, I had to see that movie as a kid. I wanted to die.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen that.
I'm aware of it, but I've never seen
I just figured you'd know the district attorney. You love that movie.
it. Hi, Rob Lowe.
I love. I feel like there's more of a motive for them in the book, but I love how they maybe unintentionally, turn them into Stephen King bullies. Like they don't need a
Yep.
motive; they just want to hurt someone.
Yep. No, you get Stephen King trope aplenty in this show.
I
Don't
do
worry.
love me some Stephen King tropes. No, it's interesting because he does have those, but I feel like he gets away with them because his actual protagonists are so strong. Oh, also because you were talking about like Stephen King having like a distrust of the military. We can't mention that without mentioning the Dead Zone. I don't know if you know what
Oh,
the
of
plot of that
course. Yeah,
is,
yeah.
but the whole plot of that is him seeing that a presidential candidate will bring about the end of the world, and he doesn't know how to stop him, so he ends up assassinating him or
Yeah.
trying to. I
What
don't remember.
was the Dead Zone also written in the 70s?
Oh yeah, that's early King.
Right. Because by the time we adapt that in the 80s, it's like we're clearly going for a bit of a Reagan commentary. It's that movie's very informed by the decade it's
Yeah.
made.
So that is 79. So it's
Okay,
right on the
gotcha.
cusp. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but
Yeah.
Christopher Walken is the politician, and that's just brilliant casting.
Mhm.
No, I'm an idiot.
No,
Christopher Walken is
Martin
Johnny.
Sheen.
Martin Sheen is
Yeah,
um,
the would-be president.
and it's just brilliant casting.
Mhm.
Also, really weird movie in Cronenberg's filmography because he's the body
Yeah.
horror guy.
Man. Oh God,
This does
those
not
look
look great.
cheesy.
Although I will say
Stephen.
this transfer to 1080p is pretty good.
Oh, the print looks gorgeous, but Stephen King trope number 89. He's really into corn for some reason. This guy likes his corn maze.
Is that a
The
trope?
first
Because like
scene,
you got this and Children of the Corn, but
that's two big ones.
when are we going to review the Dead Zone TV show?
Oh God, maybe one day.
It probably ends on a cliffhanger. The sixth and last season was billed as the season that changes everything, and production has
Well,
moved to Montreal. Well, it did change. It ended.
yeah.
That's a movie I'm shocked we haven't remade. Not that it needs it, but I don't know who this actress is, but I like her.
Yeah, that's Ruby D as Mother Abigail. Definitely one of the more remembered elements of this series.
These scenes are something you could do better in a remake.
I think so. Yeah, like I said, I do think this is pretty good
No, like that's a
for
creepy
the
shot of him in the corn.
Mhm. But like you said, this story is so timeless that there is room for updating and going back to, as opposed to something like Misery, which if you love the book, I understand having some gripes with that movie, but I don't see the point in adapting that one again. We can leave that one alone. If you look great, but there's so many other King things we could
Misery is
redo.
also
Misery shouldn't be one of them.
Misery is also one of those tropes that has just been done to death. The crazy fan, and
Yeah,
especially now with all the like hammering on about toxic fandom.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know they do some stupid shit like I found you on Reddit. I'm a really big
Oh god,
fan.
no! Now we're writing it. Stop the stream. They're gonna steal your idea.
In the book, one thing I do remember is Nick forms like a really nice bond with the sheriff and this doctor. And
Mhm.
like they still do here, but obviously it has to be truncated down a little bit.
Can you fact check this? Apparently, this doctor guy, this actor, was in the Leprechaun movie, and I've already forgotten if he's in that or not.
Okay. The doctor or the sheriff?
No, I think it's the guy with the mustache, the doctor. Maybe it's
Oh god, now I gotta
William
remember what his name is.
William Newman. Okay,
Oh, I
so
see.
so he's the doctor of this, but he plays the sheriff in Leprechaun.
Oh, okay. Oh, he's in the Serpent and the Rainbow.
Eh,
This is also not how I imagine the sheriff. Like in my head in the book, he's like an older Midwest guy.
okay, so this is when I have questions. So this guy Nick, he's communicating that he's deaf. The doctor says, "Well, he just said that he's deaf and dumb." Did he?
Yes.
That that's what that means?
Can't talk. No talking. Can't hear.
Okay, so he's deaf. But that makes him dumb too? Is this just like
No, dumb is word for it. Can't talk.
okay?
No. That's a legitimate thing. You can Google it.
Okay, so maybe that's just a thing. That's just not a thing anymore. Because that comes up a
Probably
lot
not.
throughout this. So if he's deaf and dumb, I'm like, are they saying he's mentally slow? What are we doing? But yeah, so dumb being shorthand for can't speak. I'm like, okay, so that's just not a thing
Yeah, it looks like we've
anymore.
changed it to deaf mute. Because of course we
Well,
have.
that comes up a lot in this too. They use
So the other
both.
thing, because I don't know if they mention it in here, but the reason that he can understand people even though he's deaf is he's learned how to read lips.
That does come up.
Okay.
Also, okay, Mister, people are too PC now. If I was a deaf person and people said that I was deaf and dumb for not being able to talk, I'd take offense to that. I'd be annoyed.
I don't
That's a
know.
dumb
The
expression.
second thing I see is why you should never use the term deaf and dumb. My mind is just like, no, fuck you. Don't tell me what to do. I'm
No, it
sorry.
really
I just,
confused. So you're saying you would call a deaf person dumb to their
I
face?
mean,
That's what you're saying.
I had a buddy with autism and I called him autism to his face.
Well, if he's cool with
Can't
it, that's
upload this now. That's fine.
fine.
There's another
But
cliche, not necessarily a Stephen King one, but the military going, "Yeah, the superflu does not exist."
yeah, yeah, downplaying a virus. Yep, don't see that in the real
The
world.
bright ass green hazmat suit was a choice. Okay, so
Yeah, these
real
are
quick
pretty
though,
sweet.
because I do want to clarify, if I called somebody that and they asked me to their face not to, then I wouldn't. But I am not going to assume that everybody is going to get offended just because a term is outdated. That's what irritates me.
That's fair, but that again, we are a little different in age. But I've just not heard that term before. That's
That
and
surprised
I don't
me.
think it should be around. Yeah, no, I think it's weird, but that keeps coming up throughout this. Like he's a deaf mute. It's like most deaf people don't talk. That's not like an uncommon thing. Why are we? It's so weird. It's just a really weird expression. And saying,
Although,
"Oh, he's deaf and he's dumb because he can't talk." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's outdated." I'll say, "Yeah, that's an old one."
I'm
Glad we're
outdated.
past
That's fine. Um, well, it's also funny just to imagine because, like in the book, because he has to write down everything, him just
that.
stopping to write something to give it to a person for conversation. But yeah, the bright green hazmat suits were a choice.
Does the book go into more detail about what Stu does before the outbreak? Like, what's his job? What's his thing?
Uh, I want to say it does. I remember he's the traditional like he was going places and then life got in the way, so now he's just kind of stuck here in this small town. And his brother ended up being the successful one.
Because the trope we don't get in here, at least I didn't pick up on it, is none of these main characters are a writer. That's a big one he avoids.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is.
Just thinking
Although
of
that's not as
Salem's
tropey as
Lot,
you might think.
Shining.
He gets out of that pretty quick because The Shining and Salem's Lot, but then he doesn't do that often.
Okay.
Maybe you could make an argument for it because I think
Yeah.
one of the kids is like one of the kids is an author there, but I
Mhm.
can't think of. And then of course Misery, but that's just self insert.
Right. Yeah, Misery's like the big one after The Shining.
One
Hey,
thing I do
sick, shoot him.
appreciate about the book and this is we establish that he's immune. It doesn't matter why or how. It's not the point.
Yeah, this doesn't turn into like a cure subplot, which is cool. The idea is just, well, people who are immune will then get together and
The closest thing
repopulate
we
the
get to
earth,
that is
presumably.
concern that Fran's baby might get sick when it's born. Like, will
Mhm.
it be immune? But no, there's no like, why were these people chosen? How did they stay immune? I don't care. Stephen King doesn't care. It doesn't. I bet you that's in the remake somewhere because that's 3 hours longer. We should watch Party that.
That could be a blind commentary.
There you go.
And like I said, I'm impressed by all these locations we got to shoot in.
Yeah, it's funny going over to like the Wikipedia cast, and it's like two whole fucking rows.
Yeah,
Like Tom Holland is in this.
yeah, a lot of director
Fucking
cameos.
Sam Raimi is in this. What?
Yep. And Sam Raimi is also in The Shining.
Oh, I must have missed him. I've only seen
Yeah,
that
very
once.
brief. Yeah, he's remember when Dick's like on his way back to the hotel at the end and he's in like the snowmobile or something, like, and
Yeah.
he stops by and asks the guy for like directions or something? That's Sam Raimi.
I-
Like, he's somebody that Dick talks to. So he's in one little scene.
Have you seen the full name of the guy that voices Patrick in SpongeBob?
Bill Fagerbaki. I've never
Yeah.
known how
How
to
do you
pronounce
say
it.
that? You
That's
don't
my best
say
shot at
that.
it. You just say it confidently like you do it. Bill Fagerbaki. Just rolls off the tongue. Yeah, he's an actor who's in a few sitcoms and stuff. I remember seeing one episode of something when I was a kid where I was like, oh my god, that's the voice of Patrick. That's really weird. But I grew up with him, of course, as Patrick and SpongeBob, and that's just what I'll always think of him from. So
I mean, that's definitely where I
it is weird and fun
recognize
to
him the
remember.
most. But like, I still think of this just because it's really funny because he's just doing the Patrick voice in this.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
just hear Patrick going, "Emma will win. I spells moan."
Yeah, good casting.
Okay, here is casting that has not aged well. Kareem
Kareem
Abdul-Jabbar is in.
Abdul-Jabbar. Yep. They were It's funny. I know he was like a famous basketball player. I mainly think of him in Airplane because he has a small role in that. I mean, some people find this distracting. I guess I think it's fine.
It's terrible. It's just that was a '90s
That
thing.
well, they were clearly proud to get him because I don't know if you noticed, he's on the poster. There's like 12 names on the poster. He's one of them.
That's
Like, they were proud
insane.
to get. If you're doing him just for him, you're gonna be disappointed. He's not in it a lot.
These two are also I think kind of cleaned up for the movie.
Mm.
They're not as redneck as I read them in the book.
Yeah, Miguel Ferrer really mellows out after this first episode. I like him a lot in this. I don't know how he compares to the book version, but I also say would be like one of my top three favorite characters.
No, he's
He's
really
a
good
great villain.
because you still get that same thing. It's just maybe it's just Poke that is a little toned down because he's a lot in the book. I don't know. It's been a
You
while.
just you just don't get a lot of him in this.
Yeah, but I do like Lloyd. This is a little weirdly shot because like obviously the plague is still going on, but now we're
Mhm.
doing backstories for important characters.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That was a terrible throw. Noah, are you regretting this so far? Just that you're not here, you bastard.
Yeah. Mr. I hate Stephen King. But no, in terms of performances, Miguel Ferrer is definitely one of the standouts here. Of course, known from RoboCop, that was kind of his breakout role, and just character actor man who's in so many things in the '90s and 2000s. He pops up everywhere. Rest in peace, great actor. Meanwhile, Ed Harris. Sorry to hear that, Noah. We're doing good. Do you have headphones? Hop in.
My flight had to make an emergency landing because of fog. Oh God, he's in the fog.
His airplane's gonna get attacked by ghost pirates.
Don't
I
think
don't
it,
know how
don't
that
say
works,
it.
but it's gonna happen.
We're good. I'm watching an underrated Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, we're almost 1 hour into it. Like 5 more to go. Like so, I do think they captured the escalation of this really well. The panic and civilization falling apart. And I think where you got those Last of Us vibes is the focus on like the military side of it, them turning on people and
You know,
that
the
because
virus and the
that's
immunity.
yeah, because a lot of especially like the military stuff kind of happens off screen in Walking Dead.
Because you don't
Don't
get a
really do
lot of
much
zombie
impact.
things with immunity. Usually it's
No.
you're bitten and you die.
Mhm.
This is something that is dragged out more in the book. We'll cut away and it'll be like doing a countdown, and then we'll cut back, and then by the time he's ready to finally move on to part 2 of the book, so to speak, then we get the big exit for the general.
Mm.
I like his performance here though.
No, Ed Harris is great.
It's like a Stephen King thing. I'd done that before.
He is in the Creep Show.
I forget. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen Creep Show.
Okay.
It's great. Yeah, no, Noah just said that zombie pirates boarded the plane. It was the whole thing. Well, I'm glad you're okay.
No, no, no. Wait, 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 wait. Show yo. No, no. That kid's annoying.
This guy's obnoxious. Yeah.
With what? Like, why are you so angry?
Yeah, I do think the setup for Dick is a little clunky. Like, you probably could have trimmed some of this stuff down.
Which is funny because it is turned out. I remember now. The connection is that the main guy, is related to the sheriff's wife. So that creates like a
Oh,
conflict of like, I gotta do this, but like my wife's not gonna be happy. And he's kind of the town drunk. In the comments below, let me know how close I am. It has been a few years since I've read the book. Here it's just, I hate you because you exist.
yeah, people are extremely bigoted toward deaf guys in this universe. If that was a 90s thing, I'm glad we're past that. Oh my god. And this is where I got confused because characters like him kept calling him dummy, and I'm like, so is he like mentally slow? Like, what's going on here? I'm very confused.
That's just an asshole being an asshole.
Like, sort of like, yeah, he's deaf. He can't hear. Deaf people usually don't talk. That's kind of normal. Not exclusively, I'm just saying. And Doctor's like, I got a promotion. I'm gonna be his sheriff. Smooth sailing from here. There's just a pretty cool leprechaun.
I do believe the Doctor's fate in this is more ambiguous. He's just like, no, you got to keep moving.
I think his corpse does pop up later.
Okay. Or maybe it's I'm getting sick now. There's no point for you staying. You need to go or something. Rock Lowe is one of those that looks like somebody else, but I can never place who he looks like.
Yeah, he's one of those like big young 80s stars where I just haven't seen a lot of his early work because I think of him stuff like Parks and Recreation.
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah,
I
he
tried
he
really hard to get into that show. I cannot deal with the whole like documentary style sitcom. I like The
that
Office. I didn't like Parks and Rec.
it really picks up in season 2, but he doesn't come in until season 3. But then becomes one of the main characters. I think he's a game show host now on something. Because of course he is.
Do you ever think about like meeting celebrities? Like, what are you gonna have them like sign or talk about? And then when it's something that you're a fan of that's obscure, it's like, do you? What if I just like met Rob Lowe as like, hey, I'm a big fan of The Stand. Do you remember The Stand? He's like, what?
He's like, I don't have a lot to say. I didn't have any lines in that. It's a pretty easy job, actually. Noah said that Parks and Red is all right. I haven't seen Parks and Red, but
I don't know
might
what
be
that
decent.
is. Oh, now he's talking about Wreck,
That's a
the
movie.
Spanish horror movie. That is a pretty good movie. Um,
I still haven't seen it.
it's interesting because the sequel kind of ruined some of what I liked about the first one.
Hmm. So, because Quarantine also had a sequel, right?
Yes,
I'm
but as far as I can tell, it is not a remake of Wreck Two.
interesting.
Because Wreck Two picks up where the last one left off and is like uh, about the same reporter and everything. What I hate about Wreck Two is slight spoilers for Wreck Two, but you know how the first one is kind of like a zombie movie and an apartment, but it's like found footage. They
Yeah.
try to make it a demon possession thing, and I immediately lost interest.
Oh, weird.
I guess it's not much better than the American version where it's rabies or something.
Yeah,
Um,
Quarantine is in that era of immediate Americanized remakes. Like, I know it was successful, but no. Do we have that on our wheel? Wreck and Quarantine? Okay.
His Wreck is
Because,
great, and I don't remember Quarantine, but I have seen it.
yeah, Quarantine was a hit at the time, and then nobody talks about it now.
It is
I don't
kind of
know
that
if
usual, like,
for good or ill.
it's the American, toned down. I like that actress, though, from Dexter.
No? Yeah, and here we kind of build up this thing with him and this guy who's just gonna die. And I'm like, oh, well, that didn't go anywhere. Again, probably elaborated on in the book.
You kind of get the gist. It's just like he's the remorseful one, and
Mhm.
this guy is not cruel enough to leave him to suffocate to death. You get the vibe. I do think you get more backstory for him in the book, Nick, that I don't remember
Mm.
if it's in here.
Oh my
I
god.
am not a native New Yorker. I've never been to New York. This doesn't look like New York.
Not really. I mean, there are suburbs.
Well, and it
I'm
is
guessing this
Queens, so
probably wasn't shot.
maybe it's close.
Yeah, like so I am curious how many states we actually shot this in because it was a pretty expansive shoot.
Yeah. I love how quickly just the world has gone to shit.
Oh yeah, your mom's dead, bro. She's got her.
That is one thing is also or that is another thing that I'm noticing here. We've gutted all of the like backstory with him and his mom. Like they were always really close and like he's that troubled kid that when he gets in trouble can always come home to mom.
Hmm. Yeah, and I just don't see where that really goes with his character by the end of this, or how that
Yeah,
informs him in the back half of this story. I just kind of forget about it.
I think the idea is that he's been irresponsible all his life and now he has to ends up having to be responsible for this new community. But
Hmm.
like I said, he's also I think the weakest of the heroes.
That's true, Noah.
John seen Jason takes minute. I am an expert on what New York looks like. It looks a lot like Vancouver, if you can believe it.
And very underpopulated. Most people
Yeah,
don't know this.
yeah, and people are shocked when I tell them that New York's sewers fill with toxic sludge at midnight every
Yeah,
night.
I can believe it.
Apparently, Blomkamp or whatever his name is has set sights on another Verhoeven movie. Now he wants to remake Starship Troopers. Stop it! None of these things ever
I,
fall through. Go through. That's Alien and RoboCop. Now that you've both been like, yeah, I'm working on it, and then now I'm not doing it anymore.
I do think he'd make a cool RoboCop sequel. You know, if it had a
Yeah,
good script. That's the. But Starship Troopers, like, who cares? We should leave that one alone.
no, you don't say that. I mean,
But they
that's
also
probably
said,
the weakest of the three Verhoeven movies that I've seen, but it's still good.
yeah, maybe. But they've also said that they're going back to the book instead of the movie, which means taking out all the satire. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, but that's what makes it interesting.
I don't know what you're talking about. That original movie is propaganda. There's no satire.
Oh my god. New York got hit with a matte painting.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, look, there's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's still here.
What is that guy doing? Just shooting things?
Yeah, some people would.
You gotta love humanity's first instinct to the world ending. What can I steal?
Oh, of course.
It's not gonna do me any good, but it's mine now.
What sounds more horrifying to you in terms of this type of plague? The idea of 90% of the population just dropping dead in an instant, or something like this where people are just slowly dying over the course of days?
Slowly dying.
Yeah,
If I'm gonna die,
that does sound worse.
I just want to die. Like I don't want to have to suffer.
And if you're a survivor in this scenario, which one sounds better? Still probably the former.
Probably the former.
I feel like it would be more of a, well, that's weird. What just happened? And now not a, oh god. Everything's slowly falling apart. Oh, somebody typed a guilty paper to his chest. That wasn't
Hyped it
funny.
to his chest.
Oh, and this guy didn't make it.
The worst part of being a survivor would be having to clean up the bodies
Yep.
because those are going
Which
to
you do
start
get into.
smelling quick.
Oh God.
Oh, there he
Like I
is.
said, he died fast.
Yeah, what the fuck is happening to his cheek there? The movie Christine makes me think of the classic movie Duel, both having driverless vehicles, although in Duel, we do have a human driver, but we never see his face.
That's true. Christine's great. And have you seen Duel yet?
I'm not.
Ooh, yeah, I
I don't know
should.
what that
That's an
is.
that's an early Spielberg movie. It's a really good thriller. Where your protagonist just cuts the wrong truck driver off the road, and that truck
Oh, so
driver has been fucking killing this guy.
that's what they're remaking with that God, what is his name? Zeus and Thor. Russell Crowe. That's it. That Russell
Oh,
Crowe movie from a few years ago. That's
that was
what they're
probably
remaking.
inspired by Duel. Yes,
That movie sucks.
I've heard it's not good, but I've not seen it. No,
Duel
but
is
what's
just
cool about
Jaws with a truck, says Noah.
it is because what's cool about Duel is like the truck is just a force of nature. You never get a good look at the driver. It's just this
That is cool.
unstoppable machine chasing this guy.
Well, what's funny too is because we have all these shots in Maine and New York. After this, we will never go back here.
Nope.
Yeah, we really don't even mention her mom. Honestly, though, that's fine. That's something you can cut. This is already 6 fucking hours.
And here, speaking of random character actors, here's Kathy Bates
Oh
in
shit!
her
Yeah, it
cameo
is.
after doing Misery a few years prior. Her character's great. I kind of wish she wasn't killed off because it is just a cameo. But this is our big like, oh god, things are really escalating moment.
I don't know if you're having this because I just saw Misery for the first time like last year. She looks like 10 years younger in this than she does in Misery.
She does, yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I think that just goes to show how like her hair and costume
Makeup.
were handled and makeup were handled in that movie. Because this is more, I think, just how she normally looked like at this time. This is probably a quick shoot. Like, yeah, we just need you in the set for a day. But this is that like military very escalation, and again, very 70s of like the press or the
Yeah,
people versus the military. It's like, oh god.
this is a very Verhoeven scene.
Hmm.
Yeah, now that I've realized where I know the dad from, I can't unsee his role in Scrubs.
Yeah, like he's still here.
There's
Hey,
another
Kareem, how
matte
you doing?
painting. I am like 50% sure the first time I watched this is the scene where I had to shut it off too.
Hmm.
Well, it's funny too because this is obviously 90s. Randall Flagg feels like he walked out of the 80s, just in like
He does.
look and personality.
Even though this book was written in the 70s, but was set in the 80s, because that book was set in the future, but now we're past that when we make this. So, is this how you picture Randall Flagg in the books? Do you think this is pretty spot on?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because I saw this before I read the book or not, but like this is just how I picture Flag, and I've seen like shots of Alexander Skarsgård, um, in uh in the new one, and they go more into like corrupt business. Like he looks like a corrupt businessman.
No,
I don't
that's
like
not what's her
that.
name. No,
Yeah, it
he's
was
cool.
that shot of the red eyes. 7-year-old me couldn't do it. Now I'm like, it just looks cheesy.
Yeah, it's fine, but this cornfield set, one of the cheaper looking sets in the miniseries.
You better get used to it. Okay, so maybe it's just once they get to Vegas. Because I'm looking at like stills, and this looks better.
No, and like I said, I think that could be cool casting. Yeah, he's got decent range
Better than Matthew
as an
fucking
actor.
McConaughey.
Oh, see, I like McConaughey. I think that's a good fit for this role,
Yeah,
even
so
if that
apparently
movie
that's
doesn't fit.
Randall Flagg. I don't mind
Yeah.
that look. It's
Yeah.
not. It's a little generic, but
Hmm.
and he seduces Amber Heard. Oh, I wonder if the remake keeps some of this more religious stuff.
I'm guessing they tone it down. Oh my god, he's in an Evil Dead shot,
That is such a TV shot too, just the way the camera zooms in on him and he turns.
and the Dutch angles. Oh god.
Oh Jesus, the camera's spinning. That's a neat trick. And to be fair to Matthew McConaughey, he could be good. I just can't see him as Randall Flagg. But honestly, the only casting in the movie that I've seen that I liked was Idris Elba as Roland. That was neat.
But Idris Elba's great. That was also very contentious for some fans. That was like the only talking point about that movie, and then people said it was mediocre, and then we all forgot about it.
He's not who I imagine, but part of it is because there are sketches of what he looks like. He should be
Hmm.
like a Clint Eastwood type.
Hmm.
But Idris Elba's not bad.
Now I think we're far enough removed from that movie that Flanagan can do whatever he wants with that show and be more faithful. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think that movie's pretty forgotten at this point. That I don't think it's going to be really compared to that.
Yet it exists sometimes, to be honest with you. You bring it up and like, oh yeah, they made a Dark Tower movie.
They did. The unfilmable book series. It was a major motion picture, John.
And they proved
You should
them
watch
right. It's unfilmable. No, it's funny because I remember the exact moment that I was like, nope, I'm out. As I saw they turned it into like a 90-minute movie. And I was like, even if that is based on the first book, there is no way you can turn that first book into a 90-minute movie and not have it to be a complete disaster. Noah says there's nothing neat about that trick. And then one of my favorite Stephen King movie trailers is The Shining from the 1980s, which only shows the blood coming out of the elevator.
Oh yeah, I love those old trailers. They're just so minimalistic in their editing.
Before they ruined the entire movie, before you see it.
Oh my god, he's got a gun. Or is that a water pistol? I can't tell. And oh my god, Sony product placement.
Sony bad.
This guy's kind of an asshole.
That is 70s dialogue.
Well, it's also that TV miniseries thing of like, look, we can't have that much swearing.
Yeah. Well, and that's something too. A lot of people don't talk about is King is distinctly aware of when his books take place, and he is not
Mhm,
afraid to use language from that time that a lot of
mhm.
movies will not touch.
Yep.
The novel It is full of the N word
Mm,
because the kids section takes place in the 50s.
yep.
I think the adult section might have some too, but even then, that's still in the 80s. I feel like that was commonplace enough in the 80s, especially up north.
You're a murderer, Gary Sinise. Look
Um,
what
the
you've done.
The Shining has it. Although to be
Shut up and
fair, they
shoot.
do put that in the movie with the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker, Robert.
No, no, I knew it.
But yeah, it's interesting because we're just arguably now getting to like things are happening, but I'm not bored.
No, this does. I mean, in my opinion, just looking at the miniseries, not how it relates to the book, I do think you could have shaved maybe another hour off of this. This probably could have been a 5-hour miniseries and would have played fine. But it's not paced poorly though. It is always interesting and engaging and entertaining. Like I'm never bored. I'll give it that.
Gene Simmons charging $12,500 to be his assistant roadie for
Sounds like a good deal to me.
a day. Slasher Fred says one of the Stephen King miniseries that I think is the best is The Golden Years. I don't know if I've heard of that one.
I haven't either.
Have you seen Stephen King's Rose Red?
No, I've not seen that one.
That one I think is an original work, but it's pretty. I liked it.
Yeah, I always forget that like Sleepwalkers is just an original screenplay. That's not based on a book or anything. That's just a thing he felt like writing. It
Yeah.
got made somehow. And then of course, he wrote and directed Maximum Overdrive, which is peak.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so this is something that he just wrote to be a movie, and then it got turned into a
Mm.
miniseries. he envisioned it as a loose remake of The Haunting. So not only do we
Ooh,
have
interesting.
The Haunting of Hill House, which is basically Stephen King's The Haunting, but we also have Rose Red, which is literally Stephen King's The Haunting. Those would be
That's interesting.
fascinating to compare.
I should look into that.
Oh, and funnily enough, it gets turned into a miniseries because the '90s remake of The Haunting was a disaster.
Oh God, yeah. Is the haunting on our wheel yet?
Oh, it should be. We wanted to do that way back when we did Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, we did, and we just never got around to it.
I'm putting it on the list now.
Thanks.
Stop adding things.
Hey, we haven't added anything in a while. It's fine.
True.
Slasher Fred just said, I don't think you guys ever watched it, but William Cat from Carrie, I don't immediately know who that is in Carrie, was in the cult classic superhero series, The Greatest American Hero, which I actually have seen some of.
I've
I
not
saw
seen it, but
some.
I know what it is.
Yeah, I saw. That's a show that is a theme song that just gets stuck in your head if you listen to it. But yeah, I saw some reruns of that when I was a kid, and oh my god, it's a spooky wheelchair. Whoa. That's funny. That is a shot right out of Sleepwalkers, where for no reason they open a door and a corpse just falls toward the camera face first. I see what you're doing, Mick Garris. But there's a lot of Raimi influence in some of these shots, right? Like the tight close-ups, and the zooming.
It's interesting viewing as this an adult that can recognize some of that stuff.
Mhm. No, I am genuinely impressed with the cinematography and the camera work. Like this looks good.
It looks
It's more
better than some
dynamically shot
streaming
than
stuff that I've seen nowadays.
yeah, like the camera's always moving. Oh my god.
Why is everybody obsessed with chicken in this facility?
I don't know. It's their quirk. And oh my god, I ran into a backlot.
I'm curious to go back to the remake and try to actually finish it at some point. Because, like we said, James Marsden is actually really good casting for this role.
Yeah, I agree. So you or I was talking about Sam Raimi a minute ago, who, as we'll get to at the end of this commentary, does pop up in this miniseries and also had a cameo in the Shining miniseries. What? Raimi never directed a Stephen King adaptation? Just saying.
Yeah.
That could have been cool. What Stephen King book do you think would make for a good Raimi picture? What do you think he'd be a good fit for?
Okay, hear me out. It's not a book. Sam Raimi remakes Maximum Overdrive.
I'm down. I'm sold.
Just let him go bonkers.
Yeah. And he can keep. No, you know what they should do? They should make the Green Goblin face the one from the 2002 movie on the truck.
Yes.
Tie it all together.
For a
It's
more
perfect.
serious answer, it's hard to say because I've never seen him do straight horror.
Yeah,
Um,
we think of him as horror comedy.
yeah, and Stephen King doesn't do a lot of that, at least in his books. So I mean, Maximum Overdrive would probably be the one that fits his sensibilities the best.
I mean, he did try to get weird with stuff like what was it, like Dreamcatcher? That probably would have been better if that was directed by Raimi. Probably. I
Okay,
don't know
so
who
we have
directed
a
that.
list of Stephen King books that Sam Raimi wishes he had adapted.
Ooh,
He
interesting.
loves The Shining. He loves
Makes
Carrie.
sense.
He wants to do. He would love to do something from the Night Shift collection.
And that one I'm not familiar with. So yeah, give him something more obscure. It's fine.
Okay, so the Night Shift collection has two notable adaptations according to this article. One of them we just talked about is Misery.
Oh, okay.
And the other, wait, what? That doesn't make sense.
And oh my God, we're at the
Oh, okay,
start of
never mind.
episode 2.
And then I'm guessing. So I'm guessing he's just talking about because Rob Reiner worked on that. But the night shift one that he's talking about is probably Stand by Me.
Hmm.
I don't know.
And that's one of the big like drama adaptations that I still need to watch.
Yeah, I need to give it another go. I thought it was fine.